Hello everybody and welcome to Amphlett Reviews, back with another Japanese deep dive and continuing on with the Tai Katô sort of mini trilogy going on here from the Radiance release films. Previously I have reviewed the By a Man's Face You Should Know Him, which I absolutely loved. It was really goddamn good, really impressive, still thinking about it even now. And I checked out Eye the Execution, the next of the releases by Radiance, and also released in 1968, so a couple of years after the first one. And this was his next kind of follow-up film, essentially. And this is going a completely different left field, going from a untraditional, very much a hopeful message about kind of like peace and humanity kind of film, while doing a Yakuza entertaining kind of piece, but doing something interesting with narrative structure and cinematography, and just a very unique film ultimately, and with a very charismatic and very interesting kind of protagonist character. And this one goes completely opposite and doing more horror and doing a serial killer film and a murder mystery at the same time. Very different, and set in black and white to give it this kind of very dread-filled kind of horror, kind of in the shadows kind of feel, which it didn't need to be filmed in black and white. It's just a deliberate choice by the director. This is the Radiance release. This is the limited edition version, which the limited edition version basically is just this kind of like spine little slip there, and you also get the booklet. I don't know if you get the booklet with the standard version, but I do believe this edition now is out of print. So if you do have managed to find it in your local stores or HMV or Amazon, check it out definitely for sure. It's going for quite a reasonable price. I think it's on the sales a few times, but I do think the limited edition set of this is now officially out of print on the official Radiance site. So glad I got my copy when I did. And so yeah, really nice edition itself. Some great extras material, 2 Pacific extras, which really kind of dive into the what the film represents. You've got Kenji Fukasako's son talking about this, similar to we did in the first one again, just talking about the themes of the film, the ideas, and being an aspiring filmmaker and what this film means to an audience member. What do people take away from something like this, with the subject matter being quite heavy, which I'll get into soon. And there's also a really good extra on this edition talking about serial killer films within Japanese kind of cinema, essentially going from the very first ones, going from something all the way up to kind of Cure, and some of the later entries of Death Note, for instance. Very interesting kind of like deep dive and insight. As mentioned, Eye the Execution, released in 1968, is a very cutthroat, very dark, very miserable, but intriguing and engaging murder mystery film. It starts off pretty shocking with a murder happening straight off the bat, basically a rape and a murder that happens to this woman, and it is showed in its full kind of effect. This is not cutting away, kind of these really long take shots. It's messing with kind of angles and kind of like where it wants to show certain people's faces and expressions, and how it kind of gets really close into certain kind of these, especially the victim's kind of face, especially forced to write down a series of names on a piece of paper. He takes this, we see his face, and after that we see this really intense, very chilling kind of murder taking place with a knife, and in fact he's kind of beating her senselessly. This is someone who's very angry and takes this very personal, very ahead of its time kind of montage little shot. It's very simple. It's nothing like too crazy really, but I just was kind of surprised. Most Japanese and Hong Kong movies, in terms of their credits, in terms of their kind of opening titles, it's just the title of the film and that's it. You kind of get a few kind of names pop up here and there, but that's kind of it. It's very brief, it's very quick. It's not really a focus, especially within an hour and like half an hour film, especially within a 90-minute film. It doesn't waste too much time. But I was really surprised and kind of like taken back a little bit, the fact they do this kind of almost CSI sort of montage a little bit with the police officers kind of having a bit of a time jump, investigating this kind of murder that's taking place, taking DNA evidence and examining the kind of the crime scene, and it cuts to like these white kind of tech actors' names, and it kind of cuts back and forth. It's very kind of ahead of its time. The storyline for Eye of Execution, I'm going to read directly from the Radiance box. I think is definitely a good summarize of the film without giving too much away. I need to be very careful what I say in terms of reveals. I'm going to be very tiptoe, but I think it's very interesting for say the least. So basically the storyline for this is a man brutally murders a woman after forcing her to write down a series of names, basically write down 4 of the names on a piece of paper, as we see in the opening of the film. As the cops investigate, the killer seems more increasingly linked to a suicide of a young boy in the same building. So there is a connective tissue that does happen between one suicide and these group of women. And that's all I want to say really about the story. In terms of the reveals of what happens within the third act of the film and where the film goes ultimately is quite chilling. You know, some of the motivations and the justification, both between our killer and what happens also. It definitely reminds me of a few other movies, and it just kind of gets you angry. You know, when the characters, you know, have done something specifically wrong and they are just saying, we did nothing wrong, it was fine, it's not even a crime, it's not even a thing, you know, and it's just that kind of passive kind of attitude that happens within this. It really kind of challenges you as an audience member. It really kind of gets you into the kind of the momentum of the film, which is deliberately trying to suck you in. You know, being the fact that these murders are quite horrible and quite kind of nasty, and, you know, there's some choices that do happen within these women kind of, you know, linked killings. I'm thinking to myself, why are they doing that? What's going on? And then once all is revealed, it makes sense. It definitely makes it for much more of a rewarding second viewing, definitely down the line for sure. And I'm going to look forward to re-exploring this. And I can definitely see this film being a potential one-off for some people. You know, you might watch this and not get anything out of it ever again. You might have just got everything you needed, which I completely understand. You know, not every film like this nature, this type of serial killer kind of movie is for everyone, and it's not always going to be something on repeated reviewings. But I think the very deliberate choices within its kind of, you know, cinematography, within its lighting, with how it's framed certain shots, you know, this director is just fucking fantastic at just presenting really engaging stories and pacing it just right. You know, and having an appropriate runtime as well. An hour and a half is my sweet spot in terms of Japanese and Hong Kong movies also. I truly believe if you can make an hour and a half movie truly engaging and really kind of just sink your teeth into that kind of, you know, journey for this kind of runtime, I think it's definitely something that's to be applauded. And I just love the use of the technical aspects of this film, and it's even more interesting, I would say, compared to the first film that I watched of him. You know, being the fact this is black and white, he's got this very kind of industrial kind of landscape going on. There's a really specific shot towards the end of the film where it's kind of showing blood, and I don't know if it's actually meant to be blood or just mud, but it's very effective. It's very interesting. The film doesn't shy away from using some gory effects, especially for the late 60s, and it's not like graphically violent. It isn't a slasher film, it isn't like something like a Saw movie, but it's just so goddamn intense. It's so specific in how it wants to show violence and how it's used. It's just the nature of a knife or using your fist or, you know, strangling someone, and just the expression and the vulnerability of a situation like that. It's really kind of, you know, really kind of sucks you into what's happening, and that also plays into what actually takes place within the, you know, within the film, and also within why the motivation of this person is doing what he does. He finds out something specific, and he has taken in his mind, a justifiable action, and this idea of, you know, something innocent, something, you know, pure has been tainted, has been defined, has been ruined, has been kind of corrupted, and he can't stand by it. Why his motivations to do what he's doing is all there. We don't fully know. We don't know who he is necessarily. We don't know his past, really. You get implements, you get little bits here and there, and surprisingly and quite ballsy of a film to do a serial killer film about killing women, to also have a love story on this character on top of it, is also very daring and very kind of risky at the same time, but it's not done in a traditional way. It's not done in a kind of a typical kind of romantic kind of fashion. There is some kind of, you know, tragic story to also the love interest character. There's a bit of a connection that does happen within Crossing. You know, this character is doing something very specific and very horrible, and he comes on the path of this woman also going through a bit of a transitional period. Something's happened to her in her past, and, you know, there's moments where he kind of, you're exploring a little bit about him. You don't know much about his own past, his own kind of regrets or anything. We don't know necessarily why he is doing the way he's doing. We know the motivation, we know the reason, but why is he doing it? And why does he have this urge to do it in this way? Because you don't wake up one day and go like, I want to rape and I want to stab and I want to basically beat a woman to death. That's something that you just don't do just out of nowhere, you know, and regardless of the motivation and the reasonings for it, you know, that's something that isn't something you just do. You know, so there is something there going on within that character. So And the fact that you kind of cross the roads with this other woman, which also is going for a bit of a transitional kind of period, is explored very interestingly. And I think it adds something to the character, and especially the music. One of the things I really loved about the edition on the extra Kenji Fukasaku's son mentioned something I did not realize, and this idea of the scoring of the film, basically when a woman gets basically killed and kind of, you know, is taken out essentially, there is a kind of an everlasting track of this kind of a chorus of women just kind of humming, and it's almost like the women kind of like refusing to escape their bodies, like the soul escaping essentially. It's a really great observation and something that I completely missed in the film. I just thought it's part of the kind of the chill factor of it, but looking back on it, thinking, you know, that's a real deliberate choice. That's a really interesting idea in terms of the kind of, you know, female chorus kind of, you know, singing as, you know, these scenes are playing out. I think the film itself is very controversial. It's definitely going to be an interesting talking point within other film fans and people that have their own opinions. And I like the fact that the film even addresses the topic and in a way that is basically covering everyone's sort of opinion. I think it's very kind of non-biased. It's like, here's the situation, here's what's happened, you know, in terms of the circumstance, in terms of what's happened with this mystery, and everyone's got their opinion, everyone's got their kind of viewpoint, and it's very telling of the time of people in general and the law, and, you know, what is classed as an actual crime, what is not, and there is double standards being taken place within this film, which I definitely think is something that would not happen within modern day. I don't think anyone would dare remake this film or even touch it, because I think the subject matter is very, very hot. Unfortunately, there isn't much more I can say without going into spoiler territory, so I'll leave it as this. If you're in the mood for a much more of a darker, much more of an engaging murder mystery film that has a little bit of an edge, that has some interesting storytelling devices and a very controversial kind of topic, this definitely is going to be one for you for sure. On the flip side, I definitely would say be cautious. It is definitely an 18 for a reason. It is not for the faint of hearted. It is definitely going to get you angry. It's definitely going to get you emotional. It's definitely going to get you sucked into the drama, and it definitely wants a reaction out of you as an audience member. So definitely recommend picking up I, the Executioner, and a really good entry on this director's kind of filmography, which I'm diving into at the moment. So what are your thoughts and opinions on I, the Executioner? Please comment down below. So in the meantime, guys, down for the reviews. Signing out.